kind of all the same. Yeah.
Are we ready in the back?
We are.
And Jane, are we ready? Okay, terrific. Well, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May not 1st. What is the date today? 8th. And we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going to our website or to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to the public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room, or has anyone registered online for public comment?
No, neither.
Okay, thank you. All right, welcome to our guest. We'll invite you to sign the guest list on the table there as you come in, and we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Starr, will you lead us?
Absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we do have today a couple of non-agenda items. There are two unscheduled items. We'll take one immediately before item 5 and the other after item 16. So our first unscheduled item is consideration of a criminal justice grant application for Family Treatment Court. And with us, we have Chris Hamilton. Please come up. And Judge Trevino. Good morning. Please come up.
Commissioner Bell, Commissioner Starr, Commissioner Olson, for the record, my name is Christopher Hamilton. I'm the trial court administrator here for the Circuit Court. Thank you for, with short notice, getting us on the agenda. This opportunity came to us late Monday afternoon, and what this is an extension of our existing Criminal Justice Commission grant with Family Treatment Court. What happened is the legislature allocated additional resources to the Criminal Justice Commission for reallocation to the state's Family Treatment Courts. So with that, we put our heads together of some things that weren't initially funded in the original application. So we're able now to request those things. The two things that we will be requesting with approval from the county, as the county is the recipient there of the grant, although the recipients of the funding go to the participants of the program. The first item that we'd be requesting is additional toxicology for our participants once they are out of treatment and still involved in the program, as well as for those participants who are out of county in various residential treatment settings where there's not the availability of true toxicology with chain of command and the other things that are required for key component number 5 of the drug course of having random and frequent drug testing. The other thing we're requesting is something that was in the original application but which wasn't funded, and that's housing for our Family Treatment Court participants when they're in the program, which will allow them to, one, be successful and then continue on. So what we're looking for, this isn't a new application, but it is important enough because it's a change to come and ask you for approval to accept these funds, and we're seeking seeking your approval, and we're here to answer any and all questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Judge Trevino, would you like to add anything?
I don't have anything in particular. The one thing that we have struggled with is the UAs, because people do UAs when they're in treatment, but Family Treatment Court is like a year-long program, and sometimes we get people that graduate from treatment So they're no longer being UA'd, but Family Treatment Court grant requires them to be UA'd, but we don't have treatment UAs, and it's just a gap that we have, and we also have some out-of-county people, so it's not as easy as just trying to work out with Adventist, who's been very gracious. So we really, that's a gap that we really hopefully can fill with these funds.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll invite my colleagues to ask questions, make comments.
Sure. So no questions, but just delight.
Yes.
You know, I sit on the committee for this, and it's just an opportunity that our community has needed for a very long time. And I'm so delighted that we have this court, and having the support for the UAs. We've sat in those meetings trying to sort this out over the last 6 months, and having the funding to make that happen is crucial. And of course, housing. You know, we had hoped that we would be able to partner with the Iron Tribe and have a house here, and that has not come to fruition. So with this funding being able to support it, it's just huge. I mean, that is one of the biggest barriers for our families, and having funding for that it's yeah, so crucial. So I'm just thrilled that there's more money and that we're in line to receive some of that for your program.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I have no real questions either. I think, as I understand it, this is simply another piece of the criminal justice system, and maybe a missing piece or one that can be enhanced. And so you certainly have my support. I'd say get on it, and good for us, good for everybody, and good for those who are in the system, and maybe helps.
Thank you. Well, I am also fully supportive. I think it's a rare opportunity when a funding source comes and says, oh, hey, actually, we have more money. And so I think that's fabulous. And I'm particularly pleased that there will be funding for housing support for people who are in the program, because it's essential to success. And so we're fully supportive. Thank you.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a criminal justice grant application for Family Treatment Court, I move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you for coming.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 5, which is consideration of a memorandum of understanding with the Tillamook Coast Visitors Association, City of Rockaway Beach, Port of Garibaldi, Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad, Tillamook Estuaries Partnership, City of Bay City, Tillamook County Pioneer Museum, Port of Tillamook Bay for the Tillamook Bay Trails Coalition. And with us, we have this morning Dan Haag, who's the what is your Director of Trails, Outdoor Recreation and Accessibility from Tillamook Coast Visitors Association. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Commissioners.
Thanks for coming in person. We're glad to see you.
Yeah, definitely. So it's pretty straightforward. The memo of understanding that we wanted to create brings together all of these entities that you mentioned to kind of under one umbrella, so we can work together to get funding for various trail and outdoor recreation projects and facilities, bring together partnerships and resources that will make these projects possible, and also kind of create the Tillamook Bay Discovery Loop, which is an online presence that will highlight the history of the bay and that surrounding area, so we can show visitors, as we create these projects, the history and background of the Tillamook Bay area. So kind of in a nutshell, we believe that the beginnings, the people that we have selected and the entities we've selected to join initially bring together a great understanding of trails and recreation and a great amount of resources, including accessibility, which is one of the reasons we'd like Tillamook County to sign on the memo of understanding, so we can get Tillamook County Wellness and the Parks Department on board as well. We think there's room in the future for more partners, but this is a good springboard, and it's just a really good way to bring everybody together, so we're not competing for funding for these various projects, but working together, and we can get a bigger bang for the buck when we apply for a grant. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the MOU at this point.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Scarr, questions?
It looks like a great effort, and I know that when we added the money to visit Tillamook Coast for a trails person, I think this is certainly a piece of what we were envisioning, because we had lots of feedback from the community saying, we have all of these trails efforts and they're not coordinated and they aren't talking to each other. And how do we create a cohesive trail system? And so this feels to me like a great piece of that work. So I'm delighted that it's coming together. I do notice that the Salmonberry Trail is not a part of that at all. Is there some reason for that or conversation that has or hasn't been had?
No, in fact, I'm coordinating with Carolyn, and we're going to probably bring them, once we get our initial kind of scope of work put together locally, then we can bring in outside partners. We want to bring in the Sandberg Trail and Trail Keepers of Oregon, for example, when we get closer to deciding on what it is we want to do. But I think this first year initially will be kind of working on those kinds of decisions.
Okay, thank you, because I see that as being a big player ultimately, and when you talk about that by the bay part, there's certainly the Salmonberry is going to be running right along that same section. So,
Absolutely, and I
Yeah.
think the overarching purpose of this coalition is to, work together with Sandberry and, develop projects that coordinates with the Sandberry. So it's a big piece of the puzzle.
Okay, perfect. That was my only comment, is that they
Right.
were not there, and I know that they are working hard to become a big player in this side of
Yes,
the side of the hill for the trails.
absolutely.
No, thank you, Dan. I think this is great. Again, I feel like that was kind of this envision that we had initially, was we need a system, and that's perfect.
Excellent.
Well, thank you. I too support this. I've always believed there's strength in numbers. And the people who come to visit here and local people as well who use these sorts of things, I don't think they care at all in what jurisdiction they are. They simply go enjoy whatever it is they're doing, and whether it's managed by these people or this organization is sort of irrelevant. It's like going from one city or even one state to another. You want to do what you're going to do, and how that's organized behind the scenes is largely irrelevant. But to the if this can do what we need to do or what we want to do, and it makes more sense economically or otherwise, I'm all for it. And so good for you, and keep going.
Excellent.
I'm also fully supportive. I'm grateful for your work. I concur with Commissioner Scar that this is you are acting out the vision that I think we all held several years ago for how to bring together, how to coordinate the work of trails. And we have a wealth of fabulous trails in Tillamook County, and they were largely separate. So I think this is very exciting. I assume that in the future, OPRD will be part of this group because they have amazing trail resources. And so I see great things in the future for outdoor recreation. It's part of what attracted me to Tillamook County in the first place, were trails and outdoor recreation. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and so to be able to to have a map and digital resources to look at all our trail systems and work together on them, I think it's all good. So I'm happy that you're doing this work and grateful. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, well, Madam Chair, in consideration of a memorandum of understanding with Tillamook Coast Visitors Association, City of Rockaway Beach, Port of Garibaldi, Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad, Tillamook Estuaries Partnership, City of Bay City, Tillamook County Pioneer Museum, Port of Tillamook Bay, for the Tillamook Bay Trails Coalition, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you,
Dan.
Commissioners.
Thanks for being here. Item 6 is consideration of an order in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract for the Tillamook County 2024 Tillamook County 2024 asphalt procurement. And with us, we have Nicole Baldwin from Tillamook County Public Works. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, Commissioners. So paving season is upon us, and we advertised for the 2024 asphalt procurement. We did get 4 companies that responded. We would like to award contracts to the 4 companies, which are Knife River, SC Paving, Bayview Asphalt, and Road and Driveway Company. It's a little different because it does go by the tonnage, by the value per ton, and it changes monthly depending on the fuel cost and oil cost. But we're requesting the board's approval on generating these contracts.
Thank you, Nicole. Commissioners? Commissioner Olson, do we have any questions or
Um,
comments?
Yes, I would, and the asphalt market, of course, is tied to petroleum, and petroleum is a fairly volatile commodity. Could you say if you know is the price locked in for the season, or does it follow an index, like one of the major Blums, or I think others that are track oil costs? In other words, is it fixed for the season, or might this go up X% sometime during the season?
It does go up monthly, so it does go up per season.
But if it
Or-
goes up, it might come down. I noticed that gasoline
Yeah.
prices, look, to me, if I got it right, I think gas prices have gone down about 20 cents here just in recent weeks. So I'm assuming it can go up or down based on the markets.
Yes,
Okay.
I have not seen it go down yet, but fingers crossed.
Well,
Yeah.
Not too many things go down, but I know this is a volatile commodity. I guess the second question then, are there any, um, well, are there other, where does Tillamook County stand compared to other organizations in doing this? Are we a little bit ahead of the curve? In other words, the question is, if you don't get in line at some point or get in a queue, other organizations then are left out and they have to go to a higher price supplier somewhere else. And I see your boss just appeared on the screen. He might be able to answer that as well.
As your questions get more and more complicated.
So in other words,
Oh.
where are we? Are we in the middle of the pack, or have others already placed their contracts, or can you say?
So, kind of backing up to, I'm over in Salem at a bridge conference. I'll be back in time for budget this afternoon. So thanks, Nicole, for filling in my stead. Wasn't sure how deep into the weeds we were going to go with the questions, so I thought I would pop on. We are tied to a monthly basis with an index that ODOT uses for asphalt procurement. There's actually two indexes that are tied. One is for the oil cost, and the other one is for fuel prices. Some of these plants, it's essentially the same as we've always done. This is the first year where the auditors had commented last year that we never had a contract for asphalt procurement. So this year is the first time we've done the asphalt procurement. The intent is that nothing really changes. We will still buy from whichever asphalt plant makes the most sense due to our operations. Usually it's SC paving, just like in years past. We go too far north or too far south, then it makes sense for us to purchase out of Bayview, or which is north of Seaside, or out of Road and Driveway, which is south of Lincoln City. Imagine 101 during tourist season, not the best place. So SC generally gets those. The price per asphalt or per ton, this contract essentially allows us to buy asphalt from any of the four people that are providing that. So we're not in front, middle, or the end of the pack. We are at the same location we've always been, just now we're under contract.
Okay, thank you. I think those are my questions. So yes, I would be prepared to support when we get there.
Thank you.
As would I. Asphalt is unfortunately a necessary part of what we do that is extremely expensive. And as we've talked about, the price just climbs as you go through the season. So, we need to have it. And I think it's a good practice to have plants close to where you're working so that you can get it to the job site easily as you can. So I'm in support.
As am I. So
Just
thank you.
Just to add one more clarification to that, when you look at the different asphalt plants, some of them are ran off of natural gas, and that volatility is really not there. It's a pretty steady. Some of the plants are petroleum-based fuel, where it does really go into effect. So there is an adjustment for that. So you'll see some of the plants that are more expensive per ton and some that are less expensive per ton. And those are primarily based on the type of asphalt plant that they actually have, as opposed to different firms that have different heating costs associated with it. And also the volume and the size of the different plants really plays into effect on the asphalt cost.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Say thank you, Chris, for being an expert in all of this so that we don't have to be. I think
Thank
that's
you.
one of the things about commissioners is we are a bit of generalists, and so our experts are important to us. So thank you, Chris.
And thank you, Nicole, for carrying this item for Chris. We would need to
Thanks.
take these contracts one at a time, but we've just learned about all of them. So we're ready to
Yeah.
take these 4 contracts in order, starting with number 6.
All right, well, Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order 24-019 in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract for a contract for Bayview Asphalt, Inc. for the Tillamook County 2024 asphalt procurement, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order Number 24-020 in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract to Knife River for the Tillamook County 2024 asphalt procurement, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Order Number 24-021 in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract to Road and Driveway Company for the Tillamook County 2024 asphalt procurement, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order Number 24-022 in the matter of a notice of intent to award a contract to SC Paving for the Tillamook County 2024 asphalt procurement, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Nicole.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll move on to item 10, which is consideration of an order in the matter of increasing customer rates for solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee Walker Waste Solutions doing business as City Sanitary Service in Oceanside, and also consideration of an order in the matter of increasing rates for solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee Walker Waste Solutions doing business as City Sanitary Service in unincorporated areas. Good morning, gentlemen. We have with us Justin Weiss, the manager of the Solid Waste Department, and Bobby Poppy, what is your title?
Co-owner of City Sanitary Service.
Co-owner. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, good morning to you both, commissioners. So today we have 2 orders in front of you for a proposed rate increase for 2 of our local haulers, kind of here in the central Tillamook County area. So the first one on the agenda is Oceanside, so we can speak to that one first, but they are quite similar. Again, we have Mr. Bobby Poppy, co-owner of City Sanitary. City Sanitary took over operations of Oceanside Sanitary in the last 5 years or so?
Yeah, 4 years ago, maybe 5.
Yeah, so they took that on, and so they have 2 proposals for a rate increase. As we've seen over the last few weeks, we have had some discussion about what the county's paying Aaron Averill to haul recycling. There's been some increase there that's tied to inflation. And then we've also submitted a rate increase for the tipping fees for the haulers to actually bring into the Tillamook Transfer Station, both about a 3% increase there. And so a lot of the haulers are just kind of keeping up with costs, inflation, and asking for some rate increases. So City Sanitary was great in getting theirs in as scheduled. We had a couple requests for extensions, so we'll probably see 1 or 2 more of these rate reviews and annual reviews come before the board here before the new fiscal year kicks off. But we appreciate City Sanitary being on top of that and getting that in. And so, yeah, again, the rates outlined here. I'll turn it over to Mr. Poppy here if you did have anything to add, flesh any details out, or answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Yeah, so I'll go over the 2 different franchise areas. Oceanside, for a visual of what that is. So right on Highway 131, anything past the turnoff to the Capes, and then to the lighthouse is what we consider our Oceanside franchise area. And then for our Central County franchise area, it's everything from Juneau Hill to the north down to Green Timber Road in the south, then over to the summit of Highway 6, and then to the beach to the west, minus the city of Tillamook in the middle there. So that's what we're talking about with our rates in the Central Tillamook County franchise rate and in the Oceanside area, we're asking for roughly 5% increase to all our rates in those areas. Like Justin said, most of that is due to the 3% increase in dump fees, which dump fees make up roughly 40% of our overall expenses. So anytime that goes up, we usually need to raise our rates. To bring that into a dollars and cents standpoint to the average customer, our rate for one can getting picked up once a week in the Central County area will go from $22.05 a month to $23.15 a month if you approve the rate. And then out in Oceanside, the one can every week would go from $29.45 per month to $30.95 a month. So we're looking at about $1.10 increase per month and then $1.50 increase per month. And you might ask, why is it more expensive out in Oceanside to collect service? Well, the basic answer to that is operational efficiency is very low out there. On the routes out there, we actually have to send 2 drivers instead of just 1 because physically sometimes you're unable to get out of the truck in certain areas because our trucks are pretty wide for the roads out there. So one person will have to stay in the truck and drive. The other person will kind of walk behind and dump the trash as you go down the narrow streets in Oceanside. And that's what we've come up with as the safest, most efficient way to get things done out there. So the rate kind of reflects that need for extra labor and just overall difficulty in servicing that area because of the terrain and infrastructure setup. So the one thing this year that was of note, it was the first year that I can remember that our actual total tonnage amount of trash went down year over year. So from 2022 to 2023, we actually saw a drop of 4% in our total tonnage taken to the transfer station, which is really weird, but I know that came up in the overall county solid waste budget, and their number was quite a bit higher than ours, but we did drop about 4% volume-wise. The actual total payments to the county stayed roughly the same just because of the tipping fee rate increase. So that wasn't a giant difference from our end in the budget, but overall the county did see a drop in tonnage as well. So that kind of made the budget look a little bit out of whack. But if you're not getting as much garbage in, you're also not paying to get rid of as much. So the budget should work itself out with that part. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions?
Thank you. No, I really don't have any questions. I have been, as the liaison to this group, I've been through their budget process, and as we talked at previous meetings here, I think they have a pretty good handle. In fact, I was impressed that the amount of detail that you go into, and you certainly know the business, and I understand there's no free lunch, so there's no free garbage either. And so you pay what you have to pay, and we've talked before about the closure of the landfill down by Corvallis and so on, and so there's some longer term issues. But in terms of the daily operation and what needs to be done to get it from here to there, I think it's perfectly reasonable, and I think that inflation rate that you're talking about is maybe a little bit below the actual national. And I can tell you what I pay in Pacific City, and I believe it's $32.50 for one can weekly. And if there's a second can, it's another $8 or something like that. But I think they have similar issues. They have 2 people on the truck and they don't have a hydraulic lift because there's so many different size roads and safety always comes first. So I think what you've explained and the rationale behind it is perfectly reasonable, and I support it. And unfortunately, things get a little more expensive, but I'm afraid that's the world we live in, and I think they're well within the reason of what's going on elsewhere.
Commissioner?
I agree. I think Doug did a good job of sort of covering the world today and inflation, and just this is a part of doing business. So I appreciate that you are our hauler and that we have service for everybody, and it just costs what it costs. So
Likewise, and I appreciate you both being here and the explanation about Oceanside, because I can picture that. It's little tiny narrow roads, some of them super steep, so it does make perfect sense, and I appreciate you explaining it. And I support the rate increase. We were in a meeting yesterday that Doug led about water, and one of the topics that came up was when services are provided and the rates are not raised regularly to cover costs, how things become problematic over time, because then a big jump is needed that really is painful for customers. And so it makes a lot more sense to me to do this regularly as we need to do it. So thank you. I think we're ready.
Okay, we'll take both of these based on the same discussion. Madam Chair, consideration of Board Order number 24-023 and the Solid Waste Service District Order number 24-004 in the matter of increasing customer rates for solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee Walker Waste Solutions DBA City Sanitary Service in Oceanside. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
We'll take item 11. Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order number 24-024 and Solid Waste Service District Order number 24-005 in the matter of increasing rates for solid waste disposal for solid waste collection franchisee Walker Waste Solutions DBA City Sanitary Service in unincorporated areas, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Item 12 is consideration of the adoption of an adjusted pay table for the Parks Department Office Manager position. With us, we have Jody Wilson, HR Director. Good morning,
I
Jody.
have supplemental material for everyone. Do you mind if I hand this
Please,
out?
please.
Thank you, Jody.
Very belated. Before you have in front of you a request to reclass our prior Parks Office Manager position. That position was developed some time ago, where it was assisting our current park director. And as the park has grown, there is responsibilities that have been added to that position. I refer it to the front of the house, and there is the maintenance side. They are managing all of the office specialist twos, the accounting, the seasonal employees for either the custodial work or the fee collectors. And they also are managing the park hosts. And Commissioner Bell, you can correct me, but I think just the park hosts, there is about 36, 35 people for just park hosts when you look at the teams. So there's a substantial supervisory element that was missing from the job description. It's a lot more than taking minutes and ordering office supplies. So we wanted to make sure in this reclass that we were capturing that supervisory responsibility for those full-time and seasonal staff. I did give you the red line version and not the pretty final version, so you could see where we added those additional duties. And then on the last page is the proposed update to the pay table, which is moving this position from a range 4 to a range 7. So they're 4% on the non-rep, so an approximate 12% increase on the pay table.
Thank you. Thank you very much for putting this together. I'll speak to this first, since I'm the liaison to Parks and have been the interim director since October. This position is in exactly as you described. It's considerably larger than the last time the job description or the pay table were updated. And it's also essential to the new director, to the success of the new director, because just this week, we have welcomed a new Parks Director, Dan Keyes, and he's not here because he is getting set up with his computer service this morning. So he is at the Parks office this morning, getting all set up with IS. And this position is essentially his number 2. So we're thrilled to have this good to go and posted soon, hopefully, so that one of his first official duties will be being able to hire the person who will be number 2 to him in the office. So this is a great move forward for Parks, and I really appreciate your work. Thank you. Commissioners?
Thank you. No, I would absolutely support this, having now somewhat of an understanding of what goes on in the enlargement of this responsibility. I'm really glad to hear that he showed up for work on day 3. That's an excellent sign that he's going to stick around. I did interview the gentleman and talked with him a couple of times since, and I think we have a winner there in what I consider to be one of Oregon's absolute top park systems across the state and the region for that matter. So I think this is a very good step forward, and I hope we get somebody quickly and get all geared up for the season.
Wonderful. Thank you.
No, it sounds like it's a much needed change, and I think it's part of that project we're trying to get to, which is to really look at everybody's job descriptions, because things do change over time at the county, and positions as we initially establish them don't always stay where we establish them. So it sounds like this is a much needed update. My only question is, I noticed Sean hasn't signed on this. I didn't know if it just was because of timing or if she had any comments.
It's just a very busy time
Okay.
for the treasurer's office, and so I do apologize for being late. They've got lots of things going on. One of the items that we did work on with this is trying to bring it up to market, but up to that future project, we'll have a person in this position who could do that reclass project, who can share their experiences and their work. And so should additional adjustments be needed, they would be part of that process and that input to redo the job description at that time. So I very much support getting this position filled. And might I add one other small edit we added on the pay plan on the back page? When we did the new pay plan for the market adjustments earlier in the year, there was a name change for our assistant deputy district attorney. We were streamlining the naming conventions, and that was intended to be renamed to a District Attorney 3. You will see that we changed it to a Deputy District Attorney. There was no change in the salary, just changing that old title over to the new naming convention. So I wanted you to know that I did do that housekeeping item on this draft of the pay plan as well.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so the Deputy DA 3 is the new title.
That is the new title.
Great. Okay, I do remember that, so thank you. Okay, anything else?
No, I'm super excited for Dan to be here. I also learned of Tillamook through the park system, so it's a great way for folks to grow their knowledge about the county and just fall in love with the area. So I'm glad he's here.
Excellent, me too. Please.
You mentioned, I think at another meeting, maybe earlier this week, that the job market is improving a bit, at least maybe on a broad perspective. Would you have any comments? Do you think this is going to be difficult to fill, or has the markets changed in our favor a bit?
So the candidate pools have shifted, as well as some of our marketing efforts for recruiting. So the combination has been successful. I mentioned at our leadership meeting, we've hired over 40 employees already in 2023. That is almost as many as we've hired in 2024. We are seeing 10, 15, in some candidate pools 20. It's not the olden days where you'd have 50 to choose from, but you're able to choose from very well qualified candidates. And so we're happy to see the market shift in that way.
That's encouraging. Thank you.
And Sean did come on, Tillamook County Treasurer, Sean Blanchard. Did you want to weigh in on this?
No, I'll just reiterate what Jody said. We're just really busy down here right now, so I think she got the information at 7:50 this morning. So apologies for the late. It's just a really busy time at the moment.
It's true, absolutely. In case folks are watching who don't know, we are in the thick of the budget process, and I'm sure the things are really stacked up in the treasurer's office.
Perfect, thank you.
All
Okay,
right, I think
are we
we're ready for a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of the adoption of an adjusted pay table for the Parks Department Office Manager position, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jody. Item 13 is consideration of an order in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus. We have Don Allgaier, Tillamook County Library Director.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you for having me today. You have before you an order to dispose of a microfiche scanner from 2011. It was a good scanner in its time, but we were no longer able to repair it to meet the needs of folks coming in to do research and look at older materials that we have in microfiche. So we acquired a newer microfiche scanner it's quite delightful for patrons to use. And we have this one that we are seeking to dispose. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have about that.
Do we have any
Oh,
questions?
thank you. I'm assuming the market for old microfiche is not a very robust market. Are people actually going to pay money for it?
You know, I think we'll be getting pennies on the dollar in the auction for that item. But there are a lot of older microfiche scanners around, and so I do think that there are probably people that are looking for parts and whatnot that might be interested in it. But yeah, I don't think it will fetch a lot of money.
So another question, and I'll show my age here a bit. I did a project many years ago to convert a lot of paper to microfilm, microfiche, and of course now that's soon to be a footnote in our history books, I suppose. But how much stuff do you actually have that's only on microfilm, or is it microfiche, the little packets or whatever you're using?
Yeah. We have a decent amount. I think the main thing that people really use it for here, in my experience, is for older editions of the Headlight Herald. And looking through that, there's certainly more and more what you see are digital resources of scanned materials that you can access online. And so I think that's the trend over time. I would not be surprised to find that our newest microfiche scanner is our last microfiche scanner. And we certainly talked about renting as opposed to buying when we were looking at the microfiche, knowing that the landscape is changing over time, but the cost for that was just as heavy of a burden for the library as buying a microfiche scanner. So we decided that was the route to go this time. But that landscape is definitely changing.
What's the approximate cost of a new one these days?
I should know that right off the top of my head for this, but I believe the new one was it was a little more than $4,000, I want to say. I'll look that up and make sure I get that
You don't have to
accurate
do
number
that
to you.
to get it precise, and just ballpark is fine. So, it's certainly manageable in your budget, I would think. So, no,
Yeah.
that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, no questions. Obviously, microfiches, definitely. I remember using it, and you always had to push one way, and it was opposite what you thought it was going to be. It was always a big hassle. So I'm delighted that we are moving toward, a digital world, but obviously we don't want to lose the history that is currently only stored on microfiche. So, and getting rid of an old machine is always a good thing. Otherwise, we get them stacked up. You tend to shove it in a corner and leave it somewhere. So I appreciate our surplusing process so we don't have to take up valuable floor space with old machinery.
Likewise, thank you, as do I. It's interesting to think about the research projects that I did with microfiche, and I'm grateful that we don't have to do that anymore, or not very often. And we happen to have Will Chappell, the editor of the Headlight Herald, here in the room with us. So I'm curious, because you were talking about the main reason that people still use it is to look at old issues of the Headlight Herald. I'm curious about whether has all of the Headlight Herald been digitally copied, or?
No, our digital stuff all goes back to like 03 online, I think. We have all the old papers still if you want a full one instead of the microfiche at our office.
Okay, Okay, I, of course, having worked at the Headlight Herald years ago, remember those huge bound books of all the old papers, and they really are cool to look through. So do you invite the public to make an appointment, and come in and look through those?
Come in, no appointment necessary.
Very good. All right, thank you. Okay, I think we're ready.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order Number 24-025, in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus, I would move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
And Don also has the next item, 14, which is consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Melanie Hetrick to attend the Association for Library Science to Children, ALSC, National Institute Conference in Denver, Colorado from September 19th to September 22nd, 2024.
Thank you. I am pleased to present this out-of-state travel request for the Association for Library Services to Children. That is the premier organization in our nation for serving children through library services. It's a network of over 4,000 members, including youth librarians, publishers, child educators, and academics, that also is the source of the prestigious Newbery and Caldecott Awards for children's literature. They have a conference every 2 years, and this next one is in Denver, and the cost is about $2,500 for the travel. Melanie is our youth services librarian who provides services throughout the county, but is stationed here at Tillamook, Maine. And this is a great way for her to be able to understand the trends that are happening in libraries, as well as to connect with other youth librarians to hear about what has been successful in their communities. And I'm glad to answer any questions you might have about that.
Thank you, Don. Commissioner Scott?
I don't have any questions. We've talked often about how important it is for our employees to receive training and to participate in these kinds of conferences and associations so that we are staying current with best practices, so that we're learning from others in the industry. And I am delighted that we're able to send her to this conference so that she can do exactly that. So I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you. As am I. It's, I've said before, the fact that Tillamook County is not an island. There's an awful lot of that goes on elsewhere in the world, and if we consider ourselves detached from all of that, I believe that doesn't serve our taxpayers well at all. Obviously, there are questions that come up from time to time about libraries, and the commission, I believe, gets some emails from time to time about what's on the shelves or what should be or what should not be, but unless you're following what goes on in the rest of the world, I don't think those decisions can be made properly. So I would support this as well as I do with most other travel. It's, as I said, we don't live in an island, and there's a huge world out there. We need to remain connected.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate those perspectives and agree. And I think providing the opportunity for training and education for our county leadership is essential for the development of their skills and their careers and the services we provide. So I'm fully supportive. We have a beloved children's librarian and children's library program. I know there's a ton of work going on right now getting ready for the summer reading program. I was at a meeting at the library yesterday with Commissioner Olson, and people were coming in to, I greeted people coming in to go to the children's library with their children, and I know they go regularly and have expressed to me how much they love and appreciate it. So I'm fully supportive. I think this is a great investment in our staff and services.
So, Madam Chair, in consideration of an out-of-state travel request from Melanie Hetrick to attend the Association for Library Services to Children, ALSC, National Institute Conference in Denver, Colorado, from 9/19/24 to 9/22/24, I move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Item 15 is consideration of a contract for general services with IRS Environmental of Portland, Inc. for asbestos abatement and paint removal services. Kevin Jolly, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. What you have before you for your consideration and approval is a contract between IRS Environmental and the county to provide asbestos and lead-based paint abatement for two properties in Pacific City, 6010 and 6030, where they're located on the corner of Pacific Avenue and Cape Kiwanda Drive. After the abatement is complete, and we'll provide the structures for training for the fire department, an eventual, learn to burn type situation. But once everything's all said and done, then it'll be, I believe, a vacant lot for right now. So that's about the size of my request.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Pretty straightforward.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm somewhat familiar with asbestos removal and how that's done. I've hired contractors in the past for one place or another, and I think with any luck, as time passes, it will become less and less of a specialty because there won't be much asbestos left. But I know whenever you demolish something, that even if the asbestos is completely contained, like in a floor tile or something else, when you knock it down or tear it apart, it's exposed. And as we've learned over the years, asbestos is pretty dangerous concoction of chemicals and is probably responsible for a lot of disability and death in our country. And so you do hire a specialty contractor, and those people have to be certified, I think, by the state and maybe even the feds. And so in this case, I know where the properties are, and it would be entirely appropriate to bring in a specialist and take it down to the ground and then dispose of it properly. And if you don't, you open up other avenues of liability. But aside from that, it's simply the right thing to do. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, as am I. Asbestos needs to be dealt with properly. My early career, I was an asbestos inspector. Just one right out of college, my first job. So I know more about asbestos than I want to. So I think this is great. I think one of the questions that we've had is, why did we get these properties? So I'd go ahead and address that these were part of the acquisition of the Jensen property that we did a few years ago down in Pacific City. And the other question that we've received in the past is, why are you tearing these down at a time when housing is so crucial? And so I want to just let everybody know that these were in disrepair when we took possession of them. We looked and did the work to determine, could we bring them up to a state of repair so that we could continue to have them as housing stock? And at the end of the day, financially, that just did not make sense for the county. It would have cost us money in the long term. So I do want to let people know, if they're saying, why are you tearing these down at such a crucial moment, that we did the work to determine if we could do it the other way. Could we preserve them? And the costs were just too high. So these will be abated as appropriate, and as Kevin said, then essentially given the opportunity for our fire departments to use this training. So I'm fully in support.
Thank you, as am I. And I'm glad that we're going to use them for Learn to Burn training experiences for the fire department. And of course, we need to remove the things that are dangerous to firefighters and to the community at large. So I am also supportive. I think we're ready for motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, in consideration of a contract for general services with IRS Environmental of Portland, Inc. for asbestos abatement and paint removal, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioners. Bye.
Item 16 is consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6539, prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Farnham Electric Construction for the Tillamook County Fairgrounds Electrical Services Upgrade. And with us, we have Cami Von Segern, Director of Tillamook County Fairgrounds. Good morning, Cami.
Good morning, Commissioners. Excuse me. So I am here this morning to hopefully get through these changes. This is changes to our existing West Power Project contract with Farnham Electric that was granted here just a month or so ago. I'm not sure in what order that you are going, so if, I'm guessing we're gonna go with change order 1, the electrical permit review.
Yes, please.
Okay, so that one I don't know a lot about, other than during our walkthrough with Tillamook PUD and the contractors, it was established that there was additional elbows that were needed in each of the vaults. So instead of 2, there was 3. They basically went through the whole review process and determined that ahead of time. So we were holding this one so that if we had any other change order, we could bring them all together at the same time. I think that one was pretty straightforward. It is something that is required, and we are asking for the approval of the additional dollars for the additional equipment.
Any questions?
Thank you. No, I don't have any further insight into this as well. The only comment I would offer is when you bring in a contractor typically, and they're in a older structure, in some cases a very much older structure, I can almost guarantee you there will be change orders because there are lots of unknowns, and so this is not at all unusual. I don't know the magnitude of the dollars, but I suspect I do know the company, and they're very legitimate, and so if they said something needs to be done and PUD has looking over their shoulder, I'm pretty comfortable that it's what has to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And Doug, I have it in front of me, the change order amount, it looks to be $16,680.31. So no, I agree. Change orders happen. It's part of construction.
It's true. I agree also. So we'll move forward with this one and then thereafter take the unscheduled item.
Okay. Madam Chair,
go ahead.
So are you going to be approving, there are actually 3 change orders
Okay.
for a total of $16,680.31.
Correct. And so they are all listed under change order number 1, Cammie. They are all connected behind it. They're not listed as separate change.
They're not listed.
No, they're
Okay.
all consolidated as one change order to the contract. Rachel, is there anything I should know different? Okay.
So would I be able to give you just a brief description then for the record of the other 2 items that will be changed in the contract?
Absolutely. Please.
Yes. So for me, for number 2 would be the feeder location for the dorm building. This one actually was caught during the bid process. What is happening here is they were installing a very large panel at the 4H dorm building on the south wall, which is the main entrance into the kitchen area. And I caught that on the plan and said, wait a minute, we can't have these large electrical panels at the front entrance to my building. We need to, remove that and put it in a different location. So it was not caught, and it should have been on an amendment in the bid process. It was not. So now we were, again, coming back around, and that is an additional $5,886 to put it on the west side, which all of our other panels to that building are on that side of the building. So this would amount to just a little bit extra of materials to get it from the main front of the building about 40 feet around the corner, and then also cutting the pavement in a different direction, which would only add about an additional 10 feet. So that was that cost. The third item in the total overall is the underground field lighting. So we have a power pole in our west parking lot, and it has an overhead line that comes back to our main panel near the Optmeyer Arena and the big gravel parking area. The plan was to remove the overhead power line. When they got out there and looked at doing the work, going underground, cutting the pavement, putting wiring up into the panel boxes, both of those panels that control the lighting and the electrical are completely deteriorated. I know that they had sent some pictures. So this is to change those panels and then also put the west power for our lights back into a new panel. So that change was $44,781.83, all which need to happen in order to get this to continue on.
Okay.
All very legitimate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions?
So did I understand then, those numbers are part of the 16,000? So
They
the
make up the
16 is for the
16.
whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, no, I'm good with that, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6539, prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Farnham Electric Construction for the Tillamook County Fairgrounds electric service upgrades, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Cami. Now we'll take your unscheduled item, consideration of a community renewal energy grant application with the Oregon Department of Energy.
Yes, and I will just start off by saying this is fairly new to me. We have been working, the Fairgrounds has been working with McKinstry to get this grant application put together. They've done some site visits, multiple site visits, location. What the total of this will be is we are looking at doing the grant application for just over 1 million. It is, excuse me, to build a couple of pavilions. So basically they're just wooden structures with the solar on top. It does have a roof system. It will be put on a concrete pad so that you could actually use those during the off season. So not just is it generating power, but you can actually be protected from the weather underneath those. And they'll be just adjacent to the 4-H dorm, kind of paralleling highway, paralleling 3rd Street. This will generate power and go into battery banks. We have been obviously in connection with Tillamook PUD. They're very aware of this program. We have up to a maximum of 25 kilowatts that we can store in those batteries, which will help run the 4-H dorm in a limited capacity during any power outages. So this is kind of a grant for emergency preparedness, emergency management. We will be able to run almost everything in the dorm. A lot of it is also by natural gas, propane. So that will be helpful. We'll have we'll have a backup generator with propane. We would have a backup generator with gas or diesel. And now we're adding a 3rd source, which would be generated power that we're storing to be able to utilize the dorm. So I come before you on behalf of myself and McKinstry asking for approval to apply for the renewable energy grant.
Terrific. Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Well, absolutely, that makes sense. You know, if a grant is available, and in this case, it offers some distinct advantages, I would be disappointed if we didn't apply, so let's do it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I know we've had some conversations recently about solar and how viable solar is in our area. So I certainly hope that it turns out to be viable, and this is grant money is a great opportunity for us to really, I guess, begin to explore as a county, perhaps the viability of solar here. I love the idea of having the 4-H dorm connected to its own source as we look at resiliency and emergency response across the county. Having a facility that would be able to generate its own power as we go through what could be an extended period of time without a lot of outside support could be exceptionally just crucial to us. So I appreciate McKinstry's work and your work alongside them to put this grant in. And, you know, we've talked about there is federal money out there right now through the Infrastructure Act, through it's the bill. And anyway, there's 2 different, federal bills that have different 4-letter combinations, but making sure that in Tillamook County, we are reaching out to utilize those funds were available for our communities. And this is an example of that. And I think it's great.
Terrific, as do I. I'm pleased that this is a possibility, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that you'll get the grant because it would be a wonderful project. So I'm glad to support it.
Okay, I think we're ready. Madam Chair, in consideration of a community renewal energy grant application with Oregon Department of Energy, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Cammie.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Rachel, Isabel, and Debbie for getting this unscheduled item in a hurry on the agenda for your approval today. The application will be submitted tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Rachel, Debbie, and Isabel. Thank you. Okay, item 17 is consideration of an order in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus. This is for old Parks vehicles. Parks recently got some new vehicles that had been on back order for, in some cases, a couple of years. And so we're eager to get rid of the vehicles that are not operable. At least a couple of these will have to be towed away. They're truly inoperable. One of them, there may have been jokes around the Parks office about turning it into a planter. So we're ready to let go of these vehicles, and this is the process.
Perfect. I agree. We talked about it. We don't want to have an old copier sitting in the corner. We definitely don't want to have dead vehicles sitting in the corner either. And I think it's great that Parks was able to finally receive their ordered trucks. And I hope that the supply chain is moving enough that we won't have those kind of delays in the future. But I know Parks is ready for and needed new vehicles. So I'm in support.
Thank you.
I would support as well. My only question, I guess, is when they're declared surplus, then are they put up at auction, or there's no other department that would be willing to take a beater truck?
No department in their right mind would take these, and I don't know whether anyone would buy them at auction. So I think the next step is we figure out, do we dispose of them as, metal trash, or do we take them to auction and see if somebody wants them for parts? But we've already cannibalized them for parts to some extent. So I'll ask Rachel, what is the next step here? How do we decide how to get rid of them?
By doing what you just said.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation where we've taken a vehicle for scrap.
Okay.
So they always sell on auction for something.
Okay.
And then I think it might be a more straightforward process to do it that way, but it's totally up to your purview.
Okay, and so we have auctioned items off that have to be towed away?
Say that again?
That have to be towed, that don't drive?
No, we put that on the responsibility of the purchaser.
Gotcha. And there
So,
was.
so yes, but it's not our responsibility, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, some park staff did ask the question, does the county ever donate vehicles? Like you see there are advertisements for nonprofits that are accepting donated vehicles for such and such.
Yes, we have done that. I'm thinking of some local, I can't think of an entity now, but I have seen that where we've done it before.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
So, Commissioner,
Yes,
we have donated, the assessors donated a vehicle to the Tillamook High School mechanic shop.
okay,
So it has been donated before.
okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good use. All right, thank you both. I think we're ready.
Okay. Yeah, and I think Parks is the end of that chain, Doug, just having been here now for 3 years and having listened to when other departments surplus things, it all rolls down at the end of the day to Parks.
Yeah, these are vehicles actually that no longer even work, like at the end of a vehicle's life, they keep them just at Barview. So when they break down, it's in the park, it isn't on the road. These are vehicles that are no longer useful, just in the park.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order Number 24-026, in the matter of declaring county-owned property as surplus, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Item 18 is consideration of an order in the matter of road name request number 851-24-0000053-PLNG to name 2 private access easements, Berkshire Road and Farnham Street. With us, we have Sarah Absher, the Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. This matter came before you on April 24th. It was a road name request to name these 2 private easements. The properties that serve these easements are located in the Beaver unincorporated community. So before you today is a request for signature so we can codify the action to approve these road name requests, and then the department will go back and do our work of notifying 911, the owners and others of this update.
Terrific, thank you. Do we have questions for Sarah?
Sounds very routine and basically closing the loop on what we already did.
Right,
Yeah, agreed.
okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
So, Madam Chair, in consideration of an order in the matter of road name request number 851-24-000053-PLNG to name 2 private access easements, Berkshire Road and Farnham Street, I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
So the only question I have is I do not have an actual board order for that.
24-027.
Okay.
You don't have the board order document in front of you?
I do not have it in my pile, and I did not have a number on my agenda.
Okay. So we can move forward with Board Order 24-027.
Yeah, so I will redo that motion since I have the number.
Sure, shall we do that? Okay.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order 24-027 in the matter of road name request number 851-24-000053-PLNG to name 2 private access easements, Berkshire Road and Farnham Street, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And item 19, that will be Board Order 028, 24-028.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, item 19 is consideration of an order in the matter of road rename and road name request number 851-23-000465-PLNG to rename Verns Place to Coltley Drive, Sunnyview Drive to Riverview Drive, and to name an emergency access easement as Riverview Drive. Sarah.
Thank you very much. So yes, last month we also heard this proposal for a development known as Riverview Meadows that's located in the Nehalem urban growth boundary. And that hearing took place on April 3rd. So the board order before you, request for signature, reflects the decision and the action you took at that April hearing to approve these road name requests as well.
Terrific. Questions?
Oh, very routine.
Nope, no question.
Okay.
Madam Chair, in consideration of Board Order 24-028 in the matter of road rename and road name request number 851-23-000465-PLNG to rename Verns Place to Colty Drive, Sunnyview Drive to Riverview Drive, and to name an emergency access easement as Riverview Drive, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, we now have, next on our agenda, item 20 is a 10 a.m. public hearing. Sarah, do you need a brief recess before we jump into the public hearing?
If you would like to take 5 minutes, we can, or we can go into it. I think we're ready.
I think either way. I can
Good
go
to go?
forward. I can go forward. I think this won't be a hours-long hearing.
Okay, terrific.
I hope.
Okay, so this is a 10 a.m. time-certain public hearing. It's consideration of amending section 3.010 of Tillamook County Land Use Ordinance to establish use and development standards for construction of an accessory dwelling unit and siting of a recreational vehicle on residentially zoned properties located within the rural residential 2-acre and 10-acre zone. Again, we have Sarah Absher, Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to start today, County Council has a legislative text amendment proceedings. He probably needs to ask you a couple of questions again, and then I will go back and give everybody an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. There is a sign-up list that's back there for anybody that wishes to testify in person. Also, we're going to have to do some modification to my cheat sheet. Now, there's an opportunity that most people take advantage of, and that's to participate online. There are criteria here for people who may wish to testify in person, and posted previously, Sarah, online, I'm sure, were the criteria for those who may want to appear virtually. Testimony has to be directed towards those criteria. The reason for that is the old legal maxim that if you either raise it or you lose it. If you don't bring it up here, then you can't bring it up on appeal. And so make sure that if you do testify, you testify according to the criteria, and that you bring up your issues with the specificity necessary to allow people at LUBA to understand the issue when you bring it up. The order of presentation, staff will summarize, the board can ask questions, public comment, further comments from staff, and then you can close the public hearing and make a decision if you want to continue it till a later date, or take it under advisement and come back and make a decision then. I asked you last time if there are any conflicts of interest or personal biases that you needed to declare, and if there are, now's the time to do so.
I will repeat that I live on property that would qualify for an ADU, assuming this passes.
Good. I hope you take advantage of it if you pass it.
Thank you.
So do I. Thank you, that's all I had.
I did ask before, I have an ADU on our property that's currently occupied in Pacific City, and I believe you said that was clear.
That's not a conflict or a bias, no.
Right. Thank
In
you.
fact, I think it works to your disadvantage because you can't put another one on there now.
Well, I have no intentions of doing that, so for sure, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you very much. So the hearing took place last Wednesday on May 1st, and there was a great discussion. I thank you all for your time and attention and consideration to this work. At the conclusion of the hearing, it was decided to set the hearing over today, and you tasked me with a couple of things. And one of those was to remove, for now, the use of siding an RV on a property with the accompanying siding standards that were contained in subsection 6. And I did do that. Went ahead and published the revisions Wednesday afternoon. But then, council, thank you. I did miss one place where I did not remove that reference to subsection 6. And so before you, you have 2 updated drafts. Those have been posted on the DCD website as well. And just quickly, on page 4 of the unmarked drafts, if you look at the clean draft, which is probably the easiest, page 4 towards the bottom, the definition of temporary residence, I had to remove that subsection 6 reference because we took out the recreational vehicle language. Okay. And then at the top of page 5, council and I had pretty long conversation. Subsection C at the top, it says one single family dwelling is defined in ORS 215-495. And we had talked last week about updating the initial language to ORS 215-495 for the single family dwelling reference from 215-501, which was reflected in the Senate Bill 644, which is where all of this comes from. Since adoption of Senate Bill 644, 215-501 was changed to focus on historic structures. But where it remains relevant is 215-501 subsection C and E, because that is where a single family dwelling and rural areas are actually still defined. But I agree with council that updating this to simply reference 215-495, which is the ADU stuff from 644, I can connect the dots all the way down. So if that has to be an exercise at the counter, or if somebody wants to know what all of that means, we can do that work and walk customers through that later. I doubt anybody's going to want to have that conversation, but I agree that just referencing 215-495 is the cleanest way to go. So those are the two updates since Wednesday that I apologize, I did miss specifically the temporary residence. But that is the only thing that has occurred since Wednesday, since the directives for action to be taken. The other thing is you did receive one public comment from Ms. Lene Rutledge, who did express her concerns about the allowance for use of an RV and those RV siting standards. However, that has all been addressed, at least for now.
Right.
So I'm happy to answer any questions, but essentially that's the summary of what's occurred since last Wednesday.
Terrific. Do you have questions for Sarah?
Not yet, probably as we move along, but not now. Thank you.
Okay.
I do not, thank you.
Okay. I do have one, a brand new question I just heard yesterday from someone I encountered at the library who knew we were talking about this and was interested. They live in Hebo on 5.5 acres. However, they said that their property is zoned for half-acre residential lots and not partitioned. So they wanted to know whether their property qualifies under this, and I said, I have no idea, but I'll ask Sarah.
Oh, that's a great question. So if it sounds like the property is within the unincorporated community of Hebo,
Yes.
so that opportunity already exists.
Okay.
And it's actually much easier. It does not
Okay.
have all of the limitations tethered to it like the rural residential zone. So please let them know they're welcome to come visit with us. We actually have that already in place.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anything else for Sarah at this time? Well, we have the option of opening public comments. We did close them at the last hearing, but I'm willing to open them now if we have anybody who would like to make public comment online. Or in the room, will. Okay, no public comments online. I will close public comments again and ask for final comments from Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have none. You do have a couple of draft options for motions in front of you that includes the declaration of a state of emergency. That was the other thing we talked about last week. So I believe that would be up for you all to decide, and then I'll move forward with preparing an order.
Terrific, thank you. Okay, commissioners, this is our chance to deliberate. I think we largely made a decision last week, which we can change right now if we want to, and directed Sarah to come back to us with this. But what we didn't discuss in any detail last week was whether or not we wanted to declare a state of emergency related to housing for immediate enactment of this amendment, or if without a state of emergency, we have to wait 3 months, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I open it up for deliberation if we want to revisit the ADU proposed amendments, if you want to revisit them, and also, do we want to declare a state of emergency?
Well, for the first part of that, I think we could and probably should declare a state of emergency, only because we'd lose most of the summer season if we did not. And I think maybe we had that conversation a week ago. So I would be in favor of advancing it as quickly as possible. The thing I didn't see in here, and maybe can be explained, what are the protections now for someone who has something that is very subjective criteria, unsightly or in disrepair, even though it may start out in compliance with everything, but after some period of time it becomes an eyesore, so to speak. How is that dealt with? And it wasn't clear to me, and maybe that's a totally separate issue. But.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. It is a separate issue, and it's a separate issue in two ways. One, the Building Codes Division in state law several years ago removed assessment of buildings from the building program and put them with the fire chiefs. So when we receive concerns about unsightly buildings, dangerous buildings, etc., we actually have to refer them to the local fire chief for their district. We will support the fire chief in their analysis, assessment, and determination, but that is actually outside of the realm of community development. The second thing is that we currently do not have a nuisance ordinance. It is something as part of the updates to our code compliance program. I'm working with county council on that to consider putting in language to present to you later on for you to decide if you like it and would like to implement it, to have some sort of standards for maintenance of buildings to address those concerns that you have raised. Typically, a type of a nuisance ordinance is more focused on cities, urban areas, and communities, and does not fall within the realm of rural residential zones, farm and forest zones, etc. So that is something that we will have to discuss at a later date. And, of course, whatever you decide is appropriate, I will move forward with. But currently today, we do not have measures in place to address those concerns.
Okay, thank you. Well, I do have a concern only because we have so much rural area and a lot of it is, at some point, it has road frontage and people pass around, and a significant share of what we do in this county is tourism. And they drive the back roads and they drive the main roads. And I don't know that it's in anybody's long-term interest to see something that's ready to fall down, collapse under its own weight, or become a fire hazard. But if there's another method by which that can be addressed, then I'm comfortable with that. I didn't see anything in this, the pure language that I read through here that did not make good sense. So I can support this, understanding then that there's another method that, so if someone is annoyed, let's just say, which maybe that's the best word. So that person then is directed to call the fire chief of whatever district he or she lives in.
Correct, for dangerous buildings. Now, when we talk about unsightliness, they're just, we don't have the regulatory framework currently in place to address that. If there's an environmental issue, if there's a building safety issue, there are avenues available. We have to have burden of proof. We cannot just respond by going onto someone's property, as you know. So where we can respond, there is protocol and rules in place. I think that bringing this work forward in the future, which we are working on now, and I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. There are other places we are looking at and how they manage and address these types of concerns. I anticipate it will be quite controversial, right? Because unsightliness, there's a lot of different opinions of what that is and what government's role is within the realm of determining how people need to maintain their properties. So it is coming, but today it's the fire chief. If it's an environmental concern, like a septic system failure or something like that, then we do have ability to respond.
Well, thank you. And as I said, I support this, the way this is written and applied. Then the issue would be making something that's inherently subjective, objective. And that's a difficult, that's a tough one. And I have no way to suggest we do that. And as you say, that will evolve over some period of time. And I can see, and what some person thinks is absolutely just fine, then the next person may say, this is a tear down, what are you waiting for?
That's right.
So exactly, so I see that, but as it's presented before us today, I'm good with going forward on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, as am I, and I think the emergency declaration, to Doug's point, so that we don't lose summer season, and Sarah, as long as your department feels like you're ready to move forward, if we do declare an emergency, you are. Okay, perfect. No, I think that's great, and I think it also just speaks to the housing crisis that we're in when we declare an emergency for a potential solution to it. So, I've had a number of people ask me why we haven't declared our own housing crisis as the governor has declared housing crisis. So I think, this is instead of just a crisis declaration, this is actually a statement of an action that can actually make a difference, and doing that as an emergency makes sense to me.
Thank you. I agree. I think we have ample data to support our declaration of emergency in terms of the need for housing. So ample data locally and also, of course, statewide. So, and I support people who are interested in moving on building ADUs to be able to do it right now, rather than have to, because if we waited 3 months, then, realistically, if a stick-built house might not be until next year. So I think we should move on this.
Okay, so Sarah, what I understand, there will be 2 motions made. The first one will be for approving the amendment as amended, and then the second motion will be for the emergency.
I believe so. Council did review that, and then I will roll all of that into the board order to bring back to you next week for signature.
Okay.
Yeah, and incidentally, an emergency is almost a misnomer. You can basically declare anything an emergency, it's sort of strange. I mean, there's some things that have to wait 90 days, but in general, you don't have to have, a defined emergency to declare an ordinance to take effect by way of an emergency clause.
Okay.
And if I may, counsel, that language was taken out of the land use ordinance because every time we do, like we did the hazard updates, we did the tsunami facilities overlay zone, et cetera, hazards overlay zone. There is a provision already in Article 1, when the board has adopted amendments, they have declared that state of emergency for public health, welfare, and safety, and that is exactly from what's already in there written in Article 1, what is reflected in that motion.
Terrific.
Are we ready? Okay, and we all love these land use motions.
So sorry.
In the matter of number 851-24-000072-PLNG, a legislative text amendment request to amend section 3.010 of the Tillamook County Land Use Ordinance, TCLUO, to establish use and development standards for construction of an accessory dwelling unit, ADU, and siting of a recreational vehicle on residentially zoned properties located within the rural residential 2-acre and 10-acre zone. I move this request be approved as amended to establish use and development standards for an accessory dwelling unit based on the evidence and testimony in the record demonstrating the applicable criteria contained in Article 9 of the TCLUO have been met. I also move the proposed amendments to establish the use and siting of recreational vehicle be postponed until a time when the concerns raised by the board during these proceedings have been addressed by staff, and staff is prepared to bring forward revised language for board consideration. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
And then, Madam Chair, in the matter of enactment of the amendments to TCLUO Section 3.010 to allow for the use and development standards of an accessory dwelling unit in the rural residential 2-acre and 10-acre zone, I move that the board find the amendments are necessary for the public health, safety, and general welfare, that an emergency exists, and this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage by the Board of Commissioners.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Sarah, thank you for your work on this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We look forward to continuing the conversation about the RVs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will continue to check in with Deschutes County. They have another hearing coming up as well, so I will keep reporting what their council and their county is doing as well.
Terrific.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, well, we will close this public hearing at 10:32, move back into our board meeting and ask for board concerns.
Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to see if we had the opportunity, if everyone had the opportunity to see the questions that were sent by PSU that would be for our employee survey, to see if we are feeling that we are close enough that we can go ahead and send individual comments as needed to PSU to get a final version, or if we feel like we are not on track and need to sort of stop that train. Doug, I know you provided some written
I did.
comments.
On the first question, there was a yes, no, and I don't care or something, I don't know what it was. And I thought there ought to be a little more because it's not a black and white question, my opinion only.
Right, I think you said mostly on track instead of
Yeah,
on
yes.
track, off track.
Yeah, because people might be satisfied with virtually everything, except maybe there's one issue that troubles them and maybe it's quite legitimate. But if you say you're either on track or you're not, I think there needs to be a middle ground or the option for a middle ground, my opinion only.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like to do a little bit of tweaking of the language, like around, they say central services. I'm not sure for our employees if the term central services makes sense. I'd like to update their examples in there a little bit so that it's clearer that when we're talking about central services, we're talking about departments such as treasurer, IS, HR, those kinds of things. So I think there's a little bit of language tweaking for clarity, but overall, I think that, you know, the format that they've given, the number of questions, I'm comfortable with that with just some language tweaks.
Great. Well, I did not see the questions until you handed them to me a few minutes before this meeting, and I haven't read them yet. However, I trust both of you and your judgment, so I'd say let's move forward. I will read them today, tomorrow at the latest, and if I have questions for PSU, I'll just send them.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know we're trying to kind of do what government doesn't necessarily do well, which is to move relatively quickly. So I appreciate the willingness to do that.
Absolutely. Okay, additional board concerns?
I'll just share that I think we are getting close in coming to closure on the small table group with the governor, and so I look forward to hopefully being able to provide information both to my fellow commissioners and to the public on what the outcome of those conversations will be. So I am hopeful that within probably 2 to 3 weeks, we will be able to begin to have conversations in the light of day on that process. So fingers crossed.
Great. Thanks for bringing it up, because I had one, so.
Yeah, it's been kind of silent for a while. We had been working back and forth with the governor's office, and then with all the things happening in the world, I think it got just sort of put on a side burner for a brief period of time. But we met yesterday and are moving forward. So I think that's hopeful.
Excellent. Board concerns?
Well, I'll list a couple, just informational. Yesterday, we had a meeting of nearly all the utilities, water and wastewater utilities in the county, and there are a number of them, well over a dozen, and most of them sent a representative to our meeting, which was held at the library. And I'll thank Debbie here in the back of the room for putting it all together and getting us something to drink and a cookie. That always keeps it going, and I'll thank Commissioner Bell for stepping up as our assigned scribe and writing down the suggestions on a board. So found out we couldn't all do that without one more person, and I'll remember that at the next meeting. The discussion was around essentially what are the various issues, and there are several having to do with the delivery of water, not so much the testing and quality as maybe the quantity, but more importantly, how are all these small districts managing and what are they not getting done simply because they don't have the money or they don't have a full board or they just can't make it work because of those constraints. And so we're hoping there's some ways forward. We had some experts there, and so we'll try to convene again with some suggestions and maybe some individual meetings and get something actually working or rolling forward before the 4th of July and get into vacation season and so on. And so it's a long-standing problem, but I think we took a first step that at least said, hey, we kind of all acknowledge that some things aren't getting done or we can't do this or we don't have enough money to do that. And so how do we make it work, understanding that water and wastewater are pretty essential? So that was one thing. Second thing is our budget today, and I'll just say as the chair of the budget committee, we will convene again today and work through some issues. We're out of balance by a couple of $1 million, and I don't know exactly what the solutions will be, but there will be a solution, and we hope to keep it as painless as possible. But sometimes you get down and all the fat, so to speak, is off the bone. You get into some serious adjustments and compromises, but that's why they have 6 people in the room to do this. So we'll start that exercise this afternoon, and it is available on, I believe you can come in through Civic Clerk and watch that if you've got nothing to do on a nice sunny afternoon. You want to sit inside and watch it. Okay, good for you. So with that, thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I would have.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to say bravo to Commissioner Olson for the water meeting yesterday, which was outstanding. And I thought there was really good discussion and the willingness in the room to consider new solutions and to at least have the conversations. And so I thought it was really encouraging, promising, and I expect that we'll continue those conversations and hopefully at some point in the future we'll be able to say, hey, we're gonna try these solutions. So I thought that was great, and thank you for convening that group.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to mention that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, And I will be attending a couple of events this month that are hosted by the Tillamook County Suicide Prevention Coalition. One is tonight at NCRD in North County. They have, this afternoon, I think it's starting at 3 o'clock, they have a QPR training, that stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. And it's a training to help anyone, to help people know how to talk to other people if they're concerned that the person that they're concerned that someone might be having suicidal thoughts or plans, etc. It's a training just to help us practice. How do we talk to people? If we're worried about somebody, what do we say? How do we say it? When is it appropriate to say something? And is it our place, etc. Because I think those conversations are difficult for people to have. And probably every single one of us has worried about someone at some point and not known what to say or if it was our place. So there's that training. Then they're having dinner, maybe around 5:30. You can find out more information on their Facebook page, Tillamook County Suicide Prevention Coalition. And then after dinner, there will be a few people will be telling true stories about their experience with people with whom they're close, who killed themselves or tried, or people who've had that experience personally. And so that's at NCRD tonight. And it's also, there will be a similar event at Tillamook Bay Community College next Friday, the 17th. Same format, and if you contact Amanda, who is the person who's leading up these events, and get on the RSVP, then they'll make sure that they have enough food for you for dinner. So RSVP for the QPR training, which I'm going to take next Friday. I believe Commissioner Scarzo's already taken it, so maybe you could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, no, I did take that training. Gosh, it's probably been 2 years ago now, and it really is helpful. The idea of someone that you know or care about potentially considering death by suicide, it's a terrifying thought, but it's even as much terrifying, I think, when we think about, well, what do I say? Am I going to offend this person if I ask them the question? How do I approach this? And they actually give you a list of phrases to use to start that kind of a conversation, and then they have you practice, so that you actually work on, how would I say this? What would come out of my mouth? How am I ready to have that conversation? And there's a lot of very soft openings that you can use. And then they give you all the referrals that you could possibly need. So if someone says to you, yes, I am feeling that way, you're not expected to turn into an automatic therapist and have a deep, long conversation, but you're able to say, there are resources. Let's pick up the phone together. There's a way that you can help. So it was a very powerful, very, very good training. I really encourage everyone to take that training and to have those tools in your pocket. Everything we put in our toolbox helps our community be better. So I'm excited that these events are happening. I think one of the other huge challenges around death by suicide is we don't talk about it. It's somehow one of those stigmatized, shameful things, and it shouldn't be. And the more we can take that and talk about it and bring it out of the darkness and have it be something where, if that is your experience, you feel like, I need to talk to somebody, instead of feeling like I can't admit this. So it's really important work, and I'm super excited that we have the Suicide Prevention Coalition and that they are doing this work in our community.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have nothing else. All right, then we are ready. Oh, I have board meeting, other meetings and announcements. The commissioners will hold the budget committee meeting this afternoon at 1 p.m. from 1 to 4 here in the commissioners meeting room, 106 Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. There is no board briefing scheduled for today because we'll be in the budget hearing. The commissioners will hold a solid waste service district budget meeting Friday, May 10th, 2024 at 10 a.m. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners meeting room, 106 Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. And the commissioners will meet with John Upton, president of the Retirement Consulting Group, and Brent Langland, consulting actuary from Milliman on Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 10 a.m. to discuss the county retirement plan. The meeting will be held in the Commissioners' Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 841-178-47#. And all of those meetings and phone numbers are available on the county website on the Commissioners page. And with that, we are adjourned at 10:44 a.m. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here, Will. Nice to see you.
See y'all. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Exciting. We're moving forward with the ADUs. Excellent.
Can we just say irony? I'm the remote employee and I'm the only one left.
Oh, it would. Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. You know, because I'm sitting at home and I'm like, I gotta be there, I gotta be there, I gotta be there. And I come in here and I look around the room and I'm like, I'm the only one actually here.
Alone to build an ADU.
Good for you.
Then somebody said maybe.
Well, I think today's an important
people
reason.
could
I had to be here for the
home
leadership
equity
meeting
loan
anyway.
and add it to their current loan without changing their interest rate. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
We shall see. Hopefully people do take advantage of it and get people in this